Hello there, Ian from Stow's Great War Aerodrome here with a look into the collections for you. We're going to be looking at today an officer's accoutrements, an officer's uniform, and you see here a lovely example of it. If we start from the top and work down, officers and gentlemen were expected to look the part at all times. No matter what situation they were in, they were gentlemen and they were meant to look immaculate. So in colour of khaki, an Indian word meaning dust, even though it's slightly green, we have first the peaked service cap, which was worn at all times, and you can see even the visor is covered, so it is starting at the start of the war to think about the practicalities. The cap badge of the RFC, the Royal Flying Corps, is bronzed, which, if there wasn't enough to give it away already, was a definite sign that this was an officer's cap. We'll go into the rest of this stuff in a moment when we get down to the lower end of the uniform, but let's go back to our friend here. You can see there is a khaki linen shirt. This one has a collar attached. At the start of the war, the collar would have been separate, but towards the end of the war, they were becoming more common. A woolen tie with a very nice brass tie pin to keep it proud. You can see over the top of this, you are very clearly, you can see a Barathea tunic. Now, on the lapels, we can see bronzed RFC badges again, denoting the corps. But on the epaulets, we can see something that's more traditional. We can see 3 pips, as they're known. These would denote this man as being a captain in the Royal Flying Corps, quite possibly a flight commander, that captain. He would have earned his rank dearly, one would imagine. In the earlier parts of the war, when uniform was not so prescriptive, when they were drawing in from other regiments to form the Royal Flying Corps, he might have had cuff ranks, and there would have been various detail on the cuff. This one doesn't have it at this time. You can see these brass buttons, which would be expected to be cleaned regularly, and his batman, or his servant, would do that for him. They're the general service buttons, and there were 2 sizes, small and large, and as war went on, these would have also been used on the caps. Now, underneath it, you've got braces holding up the trousers, which were more like cavalry jodhpurs. We'll get to those in a moment. Over the top, we have this wonderful parade quality sand brown belt. Now, the origins of this belt are pretty straightforward. There was a soldier back in antiquity that only had one arm, and he was fed up with a sword belt moving around, so he introduced the side top shoulder belt there. For our friend here, he would have worn it for 2 reasons, ignoring the fact it's part of the uniform standard anyway. It was there to suspend either a sword, or it was there to suspend a pistol, probably a Webley, in a holster. Now, the Webley and the sword would both be on the left-hand side of the belt. The reason the pistol holster was on that side was because if he was on this side, in order to draw the pistol from his holster, it would have been rather difficult and ungainly. And as you can see, the belt is quite high, so it was much easier to cross the body and draw the pistol. And I'm not being funny when I say swords, because actually the 1912 pattern sword that would have been purchased at the same time would have been hung from that for all parade duties, and depending on who they were, they might have even carried it into action with them. A lot of the earlier combatants did. The RFC did not encourage this for obvious reasons. Here we have a scabbard for our particular sword. This is a wooden core with leather covering. This is actually Captain Ridley's sword, one of our dignitaries here at Stow, and the sword is under conservation at the moment, so that's why it's not out. But let's not forget that even as recently as the Second World War, officers were taking swords into action. In fact, the very famous Captain Mad Jack Churchill was once questioned as to why he took his sword into action with him, and he stated, apparently, that he considered any officer going into action without his sword to be underdressed. So not as odd a thing as you would possibly consider. As I said, we've got cavalry jodhpurs or trousers underneath here, and down to a high pair of boots, or in low boots they would have still worn puttees. Puttees, from an Indian word meaning bandage or binding, were wrapped around from around the ankle up to the knee. You can see here this one's got a little brass disc there with an L on it. You probably can't see the L, but that would tell you which leg to put this on. To be honest with you, with high boots and or pilot boots, the chance of them wearing these was quite slim, but they were still part of the standard uniform, and so the chances are one would see them for parade. Otherwise they'd be wearing quite high top, very similar to riding boots. And that brings me on to these wonderful things over here. I mentioned earlier that the Royal Flying Corps drew its members from cavalry regiments, amongst others. Well, the cavalry were very keen to keep their individuality, and in doing so they like to keep their own uniform. These are a set of spurs. I'm holding them upside down actually, there we go. Now the spurs would have placed over the ankle and projected out the back of the heel. When mounted, very handy, because one can dig the spur into the horse to goad them onwards. Not much good in a Sopwith camel. In fact, we know that cavalry officers weren't very keen to abandon these because we have records of cavalry officers getting their spurs stuck under the control gear of their aircraft. Don't know if we ever lost a pilot because of it, but we definitely know there were trouble, and they only just managed to escape disaster. The thing to remember, of course, is that these were gentlemen. They were officers and gentlemen. These were not the rough, these were not the enlisted. They were very much manicured individuals, and they were expected to deliver themselves in a very well manicured place always. When they arrived at Stow, they would be accommodated in accommodation blocks. They weren't in tents, they weren't in wooden sheds, they were in brick-built blocks, and they would, here, unusually, they would share a cabin, but they would still be in some element of luxury compared to the enlisted. And they would be expected, as I said, to keep themselves in good order. And here we have a gentleman's personal grooming kit from our collections, and this and equipment like it would have been in the personal accoutrements of every officer that attended. And you can see we've got a hairbrush there, we've got talcum powders, we've got soap dishes, blocks for tins for razors, but also manicuring tools and a shoehorn and a mirror. An absolutely wonderful look into how carefully these men looked after themselves. Because let's face it, if you're going to go to a fiery death, you may as well be good looking when you do it. Anyway, there we go. Yet another look inside our collections with some interesting objects. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to know more, get onto the website, stowmaris.org.uk, have a look at our YouTube channel and see what other videos are there to entice you. Otherwise, maybe pop down and see us here at the Aerodrome. I look forward to seeing you soon.